And shoot them for what? They never called me nigga. They never lynched me. They never put no dogs on me. They never robbed me of my nationality. And killed my mother and father. Well, I'm going to shoot them for what? How am I going to shoot them?
One sentence, and the most powerful man in sports lost everything. His title, his license, his livelihood. But here's the real question. What kind of childhood, what kind of pain, what kind of fire inside a person makes them willing to lose it all rather than betray their own conscience? That's the story we're about to tell. Would you have made the same choice? The man who said those words, who gave up everything at the peak of it all, had spent his entire life being told what he was worth, and spent his entire life proving that wrong. But before we tell you his name, we want you to remember something. There's a moment coming in this story that will change everything. A restaurant table and a gold medal. Keep that in mind. His name was Muhammad Ali. But this isn't just a story about someone who stood up for what they believed in. Those stories exist everywhere. This one is different because Ali didn't just speak. He paid the price in full. And the question that nobody asks when they tell his story is this: what creates a person willing to lose everything rather than compromise who they are? That answer starts exactly where you'd least expect it. Muhammad Ali wasn't born Muhammad Ali. He was born Cassius Clay in the segregated South, where a black boy learned very early that the world had already decided what he was worth. His father painted billboards to survive. His mother cleaned other people's houses. They were poor and they were black in Kentucky in 1942, which meant that every single day, the world reminded them of exactly where they stood. Young Cassius was angry. Not the kind of anger that makes you give up, the kind that makes you need to prove something. And then one afternoon, someone stole his bicycle. A 12-year-old boy went to a police officer, furious, and said he wanted to beat up the thief. The officer looked at him and said, "Well, you better learn how to fight first." That officer's name was Joe Martin, and he also trained boxers at the local gym. He invited the angry boy to come train, and Cassius Clay said yes. From that moment, everything changed. He won his first amateur fight at 14. By 19, he was the best amateur boxer in the entire country. And in 1960, he stood on a podium in Rome, Italy, with an Olympic gold medal around his neck. An American hero. Or so he thought. He came home from Rome wearing that gold medal everywhere he went, proud, as he should have been. And then he walked into a restaurant in Louisville, still wearing his Olympic gold, and the waiter looked at him and said, "We don't serve Negroes." A quick-witted Cassius replied, "I don't eat Negro. Just bring me a hamburger." But behind the joke, something broke. His father had fought in wars for this country. He had just won Olympic gold for this country, and he still couldn't eat at a restaurant table. He threw that medal into the river and began to understand something that would define everything he did for the rest of his life. A gold medal doesn't change how the world sees you. Only you can do that. He turned professional, and the world started paying attention, not just because of how he fought, but because of how he talked. He was fast, he was fearless, he was funny, and he was right about everything he said he was going to do. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. By 1964, at just 22 years old, Cassius Clay knocked out the most feared heavyweight in the world and became champion. The next morning, he announced he had joined the Nation of Islam and changed his name to Muhammad Ali. The country that had refused to serve him a hamburger now had a problem with his name, and his religion, and his refusal to stay quiet. The stage was set. The moment for the next 3 years, Muhammad Ali dominated heavyweight boxing like nobody before him, undefeated, unstoppable, at the absolute peak of everything he had built. And then in 1967, the United States government sent him a draft notice, report for military service. Vietnam, the same country that wouldn't serve him a hamburger, was now asking him to put on a uniform and fight for it. He stood in that room, surrounded by reporters, cameras flashing, the whole world watching, and said the words you heard at the beginning of this video. Within hours, his title was stripped, his boxing license revoked, sentenced to 5 years in prison, fined $10,000, banned from boxing for 3.5 years, in what should have been the absolute prime of his career. His coach Angelo Dundee said it best. They stole the 3 best years of his career when he was at his peak. The world called him a traitor, a coward, a criminal. But he already knew what those words would cost him. He said them anyway. Would you have made the same choice? But Ali didn't disappear. He didn't hide. He didn't break. He didn't apologize. While banned from boxing, he spoke on college campuses across the country. He trained in local gyms. He kept his voice loud when the world wanted him silent. And in 1971, the United States Supreme Court unanimously overturned his conviction. He came back to the ring, and the world that had turned against him couldn't look away. He fought Joe Frazier in what they called the fight of the century. He lost to Norton too, and came back harder every time until nobody could stop him anymore. He defeated Frazier in a rematch, and then faced the most terrifying opponent of his career, George Foreman. Undefeated, younger, the hardest puncher the world had ever seen. Nobody gave Ali a chance. Nobody except Ali. In Kinshasa, Zaire, Ali leaned against the ropes and absorbed punch after punch from the most dangerous man alive. And then, in the 8th round, he came off those ropes and knocked George Foreman out, 3 times heavyweight champion of the world, the only man to ever do it. And through all of it, he never forgot where the fire came from. Not from the championships, not from the fame, not from the money. From a boy in Louisville who couldn't eat at a restaurant table, from a country that told him what he was worth, and a man who spent his entire life proving them wrong. After boxing, he devoted everything to the people, traveling to countries in need, fighting for peace, fighting for equality, fighting for the ones who had no voice. In 1998, the United Nations named him a messenger of peace because the man who had once been called a traitor had become one of the most recognized symbols of human dignity in the world. And then came 1996, Atlanta, Georgia, the Olympic Games. Muhammad Ali walked onto that stage, hands trembling from Parkinson's, body weakened by decades of punishment, and held the Olympic torch. The same Olympic Games he had won gold for in 1960. The same country that had stripped him of everything in 1967. And the entire world stood up and wept. Because in that moment, everyone understood. The boy from Louisville had been right all along. There's a version of this story where he steps forward, where he puts on the uniform, where he goes to Vietnam, where he stays quiet and keeps his title. That version would have been safer, easier, less painful, but it wouldn't have been Ali, because the greatest fights are never just in the ring. Sometimes the greatest fight is the one nobody sees, the one inside you, when everything you built is on the line and the world is watching, and all you have is what you believe in. Ali faced that moment in 1967, and he chose his conscience over his comfort, his conviction over his crown, and because of that choice, he didn't just become a boxing champion, he became something much harder to achieve. A man who lived exactly as he believed. So the next time the world asks you to betray yourself, remember a boy from Louisville who threw his Olympic gold medal into a river and never looked back. That's the story of Muhammad Ali. This is Before They Knew. See you next time.